Hello and welcome back. Now, in this class, we're going to be talking about data storage, databases, well, everything you need to know about like storing data, blah, 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 all the stuff. Well, last one we talked about client side. Sorry, the first one we talked about client side. Last one we talked about server side, yeah. And now we're going to be talking about data. And I'm going to explain to you why it's very, very important that we talk about this one. Because first off, okay, let me give an example now. You're going through a website, a random website. Let's say maybe Paystack or something. And then you see all these things on the website, all these stuff that don't change. Yeah, you see a component loads. Okay, let me know its component. A file loads, yeah, an image loads here, and you see this image is already on the website. This image doesn't change no matter how many people visit this website. That image will still be there. Yeah, and you scroll through another website, you see similar images. These are images that are fixed on the website. We call this static assets or static images. Yeah, we've already hard coded these images there. Now, a case where you have a video changing, or a case where you have assets that are changing, let's say like YouTube, for example. Now, YouTube, where people upload their content and everything just keeps changing. Nothing is defined. So you can't exactly say you want to hard code this or like store it and just exactly, that's where storage now comes in. Because if there's uploading, there is deleting, there's basically data moving from one place to the other. That's where data storage and querying comes in. You get. So here there are three main types of data storage. Now, there are three main types of data storage. There is block storage, there's object storage, and then there's file storage. Now, I'll quickly go through these three and tell you the difference between them. First off, I'm going to say block storage. Yeah, block storage is when you have you heard of S3, or basically you have a hard drive. Yeah, let's use a hard drive as an example. You have a hard drive, and whenever you need stuff in a hard drive, you plug it in, and then you take a large file out of it, and then you use it on your system, and then you can disconnect it whenever you want. That's how block storage works. Do you understand? Where you store large files, but in a kind of let's call it a bucket. Yeah, in a kind of bucket format where there's a large file here. You just pick whatever you want and use it, and well, you can put it back, add stuff to it or remove stuff from it. Yeah, insert or retrieve. Yes, and next up we have object storage, or this is now your conventional databases where you have or most times you use this in applications, where you store documents, a number of documents or files, that you can pull whenever you need to, or you store information basically in, I don't know, you can store them in tables, documents, or I'm going to talk more about this object storage or the conventional databases. And then the third one we have is file storage. File storage is, you can look at it as what you have on your laptop or in your system, where you're working and everything is there, you're working there, and anytime an application needs anything, just pulls it right there where it's working. So that's how file storage works. So I mentioned block storage, object storage, and file storage. Now, object storage is like conventional databases I've mentioned before. This is what I'm going to be explaining more on now. Now, I'm going to use another example. Fintech. Let's use a fintech as an example now. A fintech has thousands of users. They have thousands of records of financial transactions of their users and all that, right? And you want to be able to store this. You can't say, we don't want to bunch them up and store them at once, because then fetching them will be hard. You can't exactly store it like a video. You can't package it up and say this is .pdf and store it like that, because you won't be able to access it readily available, very easily. So then you now have to be able to, what you want to now do is store it in records, right? In records or tables or documents, right? Now, this is where you now need object storage, right? This is where traditional databases now come in. Yeah. these traditional databases are, or there are two main types of traditional databases. There is relational database systems, and then there is non-relational database systems, right? Relational database systems deal with more structured data. They deal with tables, right? They put things into tables, right? Let's say you have a list of employees somewhere, right? You already know that this is the employee, this is everything about my employee, everything is structured in that particular way, and I'm just going to store it like that as in a relational database, right? Examples of relational databases are SQL, right? MySQL, SQL Server, and Oracle database, IBM database too. And yeah, those are relational databases, right? Now, non-relational databases. These databases store data in kind of like an object format, right? They're not tables. They're not exactly structured that way. They are less structured, and with the or use cases for this kind of databases where you have data that you're not exactly sure, or the schema keeps changing, right, over time. So, for example, I have I want to store data about my user activity, right? User activity over time. This user activity is going to keep changing. My user might do one thing today, and my user might evolve and do another thing that he wasn't doing before. If I store this at the table, it's already defined. So I won't be able to like add more things to it, or I would, but it will be kind of difficult. So this is where you now use non-relational databases, or NoSQL, as people will say, right? And these databases store as documents, right? As documents. And whenever you need those documents, you just like pull those documents with a key. And I'm sure we've already discussed hashes, right? You use hashes to pull those documents, or just use a search query or something like that. Now, that is how you store on non-relational databases, right? And examples of non-relational databases are MongoDB, Cassandra, and yeah, there are so many others. But most times when you have, like I mentioned before, when you have less structured data, you use non-relational. When you have more structured data, you use relational. And that brings us to the end of databases. And now I'm going to do a dramatic exit. Wait for it. Wait for it. That's it.